You've spent 40 years of your life grinding. You've played by the rules, paid your taxes, and diligently funneled your hard-earned dollars into 401ks and index funds. You've done everything the experts told you to do, all in anticipation of that glorious, golden finish line at age 70. But stop for a second and look at the math, and more importantly, look at the reality. You reached that finish line. You finally maximized your Social Security, and your brokerage account is sitting on a nice, fat balance. But there's a problem. That long-awaited payout arrives exactly when your knees have given out, when your lungs aren't what they used to be, and when the desire to hike a mountain trail or teach your grandkids how to surf has been replaced with a quiet afternoon on the porch. You optimized the spreadsheet, but you missed the life. Is this really what success looks like? Trading your most capable, vibrant, and energetic years for a higher number in a digital account you might never have the vitality to fully spend? In this video, we aren't just talking about retirement numbers. We are talking about the most dangerous, quietest trap in personal finance. We are going to examine why you might be optimizing your way into a life of regret, and why it is time to stop freezing your life in the name of a mathematical theory that doesn't account for the most important variable of all, your time. Are you managing your money, or are you just freezing your life? Let's find out. To understand why the conventional wait and accumulate strategy is fundamentally flawed, we have to talk about the two most important metrics in your retirement portfolio that absolutely nobody is talking about: your lifespan and your health span. Most of us treat retirement planning like a long-term math equation. We look at the charts, we look at the historical returns, and we look at the actuarial tables. And those tables tell us that the average 65-year-old today is expected to live into their late 80s or early 90s. That is your lifespan. It's a cold, clinical number, the duration of your biological existence. But here's where the financial planning industry pulls a bait and switch on you. They assume that if you are alive, you are living, but they ignore the health span. Your health span is the period of your life where you are not just breathing, but thriving. It's the time you can climb the stairs of an ancient temple, hike that trail in the Rockies, or keep up with your grandkids without needing a nap every 2 hours. And here's the hard, uncomfortable truth that your advisor's spreadsheet won't show you. The gap between your health span and your lifespan is widening. Modern medicine has gotten incredibly good at keeping us alive. We have better drugs, better surgery, and better diagnostic tools. We've effectively hacked lifespan, but we've been significantly less successful at hacking health span. For the average American or European worker, the decline in physical vigor often accelerates sharply after age 70. Think about your own life. When you are 60, you have the energy of a middle-aged professional. You have the time, you have the relative health, and you have the curiosity to explore. If you wait until 70 or 75 to start your retirement because you were chasing a 24% boost in a government check, you're essentially betting that your health will remain perfectly static for the next decade. But biological reality doesn't care about your retirement account's compound interest. If you spend your 60s, those prime go-go years, hunkered down in a cubicle or managing a stressful workload, sacrificing your physical energy to maximize a future benefit that you might only get to enjoy from a recliner, you have lost the trade. You have traded high-quality, high-impact years for low-quality, high-maintenance years. There's a concept in behavioral finance called the wealth paradox. It suggests that we spend the first half of our lives sacrificing our health to gain wealth, and the second half of our lives sacrificing our wealth to regain our health. When you prioritize that delay until 70 gospel, you're doubling down on the first half of that paradox. You're convincing yourself that a higher monthly payout in your 80s justifies the forfeiture of your autonomy in your 60s. But I want you to ask yourself a question. What is the monetary value of a cruise you can't walk on? What is the price tag of a garden you're too tired to plant? The irony is that many people reach that optimal age of 70, finally claim that bigger check, and then realize they no longer have the physical or mental capacity to spend it on the experiences they worked so hard to fund. You end up with a high balance in your brokerage account that becomes a legacy for your heirs, but a missed opportunity for yourself. That is the danger of letting math dictate your life. Math is universal, but your biology is specific. If you view money as the only currency of retirement, you will naturally gravitate toward the biggest number. But if you view time as your primary asset, you start to see that waiting isn't always responsible. Sometimes waiting is just a way of deferring the things that make life worth living until it's physically too late to do them. We need to stop looking at retirement as a destination you arrive at and start looking at it as a window of opportunity that is constantly closing. If you treat your money like it's the only thing that matters, you'll end up rich in dollars but bankrupt in memories. But wait, there is a specific way this plays out in real life. It isn't just an abstract theory about aging.
It's a decision that, when made incorrectly, can turn your golden years into a long, quiet wait for the inevitable. And to show you exactly how this looks when it hits the real world, we have to look at the stories of people who realized they were holding the wrong hand. Let's talk about a man named Robert and why his decision to break the rules changed everything. Let's look at the story of a man named Robert. Robert isn't a theoretical case study you find in a dusty financial textbook. He's someone many of you will recognize in your own lives. Last November, Robert turned 62. After 38 years as a logistics manager outside of Cleveland, he was tired, not just of the job, but of the assumption that he had to keep running until a specific bureaucratic finish line. His wife, a teacher, had already retired at 61 with a modest pension. When they sat down with a professional financial planner, they heard the same always wait gospel. Delay until 70, the planner told them. Maximize the benefit. It's the only responsible path. It sounded disciplined. It sounded like exactly what a serious adult should do. But Robert went home, closed the door, and actually ran the numbers for himself. He didn't just look at the government's payout tables. He looked at the real data in his own life. He looked at his family history. His father died at 73, his grandfather at 69. He looked at his own mirror. His resting heart rate had been creeping up, and he was carrying 25 pounds more than he had a decade ago. The longevity math wasn't just working against him, it was screaming at him. Pretending he was going to live to 95 wasn't optimistic, it was a lie he couldn't afford to tell. So, Robert did something the financial industry hates. He broke the script. He claimed his Social Security at 62. Now, if you want to be purely clinical, you can argue the math. You can pull out a calculator and show me that if Robert lives to 85, he will have collected fewer total nominal dollars than if he'd waited. You can show me that break-even chart that advisors love to print out. But Robert wasn't playing a game of maximize the government check. He was playing a game of maximize the experience. In February, he and his wife used the early checks to fly to Portugal for a 3-week trip they'd been talking about for 15 years. They spent their days walking the rugged Atlantic cliffs of the Algarve, eating fresh seafood in seaside villages, and most importantly, they were doing it while they still had the lungs to climb the hills and the energy to stay up past 10 o'clock without paying for it for 3 days afterward. This is the twist in the story that your spreadsheet doesn't know how to handle, the cost of experience. If Robert had waited until 70, he would have had more money in his brokerage account, sure. He might have had an extra $200 a month in government payments, but he wouldn't have had the knees to hike those cliffs. He wouldn't have had the lungs to explore those ancient streets. The money would have been there, but the ability to exchange that money for a life-defining memory would have vanished. When you prioritize the math, you assume that money has the same value at 62 as it does at 82. But it doesn't. Money at 62 is energy. It's an accelerator for your life. It buys experiences, it buys time with your spouse, it buys the ability to create memories that will sustain you when you eventually are forced to slow down. Money at 82, especially the extra bit you get from a delayed claim, is maintenance. It's for doctor copays, specialized equipment, and a more comfortable chair. There is no break-even chart that calculates the value of walking the cliffs of Portugal at 63 versus watching a TV show about Portugal at 83. Robert's decision wasn't about being reckless, it was about being honest. He understood that his health span, the quality of his active years, was far more finite than his total bank balance. He wasn't losing money by claiming early, he was investing in his own life while the market was still open. The financial industry wants you to be a spreadsheet. They want you to be a set of assumptions about longevity that are designed to protect their assets under management. But your life isn't a spreadsheet. Your life is a collection of finite windows, and the most dangerous thing you can do is hold those windows shut, waiting for a mathematically optimal moment that may leave you with plenty of cash but a completely empty life. If you are currently staring down this decision, you have to ask yourself a much harder question than which age maximizes the check. You have to ask, what am I actually waiting for? Are you waiting because it's the right strategy for your life? Or are you waiting because you're afraid to stop following the default setting? Because as Robert found out, the math that actually matters isn't the one they give you at the conference room table. It's the math of your own limited, beautiful, and rapidly moving time. But understanding this is only the first step. The real challenge is knowing how to build a framework that protects that time without losing your financial stability. And that is exactly where most people go wrong. So how do we stop this cycle of freezing our lives? How do we build a financial plan that actually respects the reality of our biology, instead of just worshiping the numbers in an account?
The answer lies in shifting your perspective from net worth to life phases. We need to stop viewing retirement as one long, monolithic block of time. Instead, you need to start planning around your energy phases. Think of your life after 60 in 3 distinct buckets. First, the go-go years. These are your early retirement years, roughly 60 to 70, where you still have the vitality, the curiosity, and the physical health to move, travel, and explore. Second, the slow-go years, 70 to 80, where you're still active but the pace naturally shifts. And third, the no-go years, 80 and beyond, where your spending on lifestyle activities naturally drops but your spending on healthcare and security likely rises. The problem with the traditional advice is that it forces you to hoard money in the no-go bucket at the expense of the go-go bucket. It tells you to be frugal when you should be exploring, and it locks that capital away when it could be providing the highest possible return on your life. To fix this, we need to address the elephant in the room: loss aversion. Behavioral economists have spent decades proving that humans hate losing a dollar twice as much as they enjoy gaining one. In the context of retirement, this manifests as a paralyzing fear of spending down your principal. You look at your 401k balance and you view it as a do-not-touch monument. But your money is a tool, not a trophy. If you die with a massive balance but a lifetime of unvisited places and unfulfilled experiences, you haven't won at personal finance, you've just failed at life. I want you to try a simple, uncomfortable exercise. Grab a piece of paper and write down 3 things: the total value of your retirement assets, the amount you actually need to cover your basic, boring living expenses for 1 year, and the one experience, the trip, the hobby, the project you've been putting off because you're waiting for the right time. Now calculate how much that experience would cost compared to your total portfolio. You'll likely find that the cost of that experience is a tiny, negligible fraction of your total assets, yet the fear of dipping into the pile is what's keeping you stuck. This isn't about reckless spending. This is about strategic spending. It's about building a framework where you explicitly allocate a portion of your capital to your go-go years. If your home is paid off, if your essential bills are covered by a pension or fixed income, why are you still hoarding cash in a taxable brokerage account? That money is sitting there, losing its potential to buy you memories, while you are losing your ability to move comfortably. You can use your personal savings to buy the flexibility you need at 60, rather than waiting for the government to increase your check at 70. You're essentially self-insuring your retirement. You're saying, I'll use my own capital now to bridge the gap so I can claim later, or so I can enjoy the time I have now. Ask yourself, what am I keeping this for? If the answer is just in case, you need to define what that case is. Is it for long-term care? Then set aside a specific ring-fenced fund for that. Is it for the kids? Then decide how much you want to pass on and commit to that number. But don't let a vague, undefined fear of being broke keep you from living a full life. When you define your energy phases, you stop being a hoarder and start being an architect. You stop asking, how much can I save, and start asking, how can I deploy my assets to create the maximum amount of life satisfaction before my health span inevitably declines? Once you strip away the fear, the math becomes incredibly liberating. You realize that you have more control over your timeline than any advisor or government policy ever told you. You don't have to be a slave to the wait until 70 script. You can build a bridge to the life you want using the capital you've spent a lifetime building. But shifting your strategy is half the battle, because even once you see the logic, even once you understand the difference between a life of numbers and a life of memories, you're still left with one final daunting question. How do you deal with the uncertainty of the future, especially when the very systems we've been told are guaranteed are looking shakier than they have in decades? We've covered the biology, we've covered the psychology, but now we have to talk about the system itself and why the guarantees of the past might be the biggest risk of all. At the end of the day, your net worth is just a number. It's a tool, a utility, a means to an end, but it is never, ever the goal itself. True wealth isn't the pile of cash you're left with when you're 80, it's the ability to live the life you designed while your body is still strong enough to carry you through it. We've been sold a narrative that life is a long, linear march towards a finish line called retirement, where we finally get to start living. But that finish line is a mirage. The real, tangible golden years aren't waiting for you at age 70. They're happening right now, in the decisions you make with your time, your energy, and your capital today. Don't spend your life building a monument to your own frugality, only to find you've run out of the health to enjoy it. I'm not telling you to go out and spend your savings recklessly. I am telling you to take back the steering wheel. Make your money serve your life, not the other way around. You are the architect of your own timeline. So I have to ask, what is the single most meaningful experience you've been putting off, the one you know you need to prioritize in the next 5 years? Drop a comment below and share it with me. Let's stop talking about abstract retirement goals and start solving the real-world math of your life. It's time to move beyond the default settings and start living the life you've actually earned.